Hi, this is James Tomac, Empire Network Realty. I've helped literally hundreds and hundreds of people over the last few years who have transferred into Florida, relocating. I specialize primarily in new construction, and what I'm known for is real estate with a rebate. I rebate half of the commission back to my buyers for the closing cost. So that's my little shameless plug there. But as I've helped these people move into Florida, a lot of people have been asking me to do a video because they're watching all these videos about doom and gloom on the YouTube channel. People are saying that we're going to have a 50% crash. Somehow or another, they have a crystal ball that I've never received, and you probably haven't received either. But there's been some things that have happened in the real estate industry that I think could dramatically change it in an opposite direction of what everybody is thinking. So I wanted to point out roughly 8 reasons why the market took off the way it did, 6 reasons why it went down, and really 8 surprising reasons that this market could really take off in a very significant way. So I want to go over those with you. The first reasons that the market took off was COVID. COVID actually changed how people lived in their homes. A lot of people had extended family, in-laws, and so on, and they're living in homes where you don't go to work, you're around each other 24/7. So people wanted larger homes where they have their own space. Everybody was getting under everybody's skin, so they wanted a little bit different environment. That was one of the biggest reasons that a lot of people wanted to upsize. Another huge factor was remote work. So you had a lot of people from New York, New Jersey, Michigan, California, Maryland, Washington, D.C. especially, where they could actually move down to Florida, maintain their job, purchase a new home down here. They're going to work at home, work remotely, and they're going to enjoy all the benefits of why they wanted to come to Florida in the first place. They couldn't in the past because their job prohibited them. So that drew a lot of people to Florida as well. Of course, one of the biggest reasons was interest rates. As COVID hit in the early part of 2020, interest rates continued to tick down all the way through the end of that year, and they got below 3%, and the buying power was absolutely significant. So, people who had bought a home years before and they had a 7.5% interest rate, and now they can get 2.5%, the buying power was insane. There was a 77% increase in the amount of house that you could buy, going from 2.5% to a 7.5% loan. So, for example, if back then at 7.5% you had a $500,000 mortgage, well, at 2.5% you could buy a $877,000 mortgage with the exact same payment. Another reason people came down to Florida was we're a no income tax state. So you don't have any income tax on your earnings here in Florida. So if you're coming from a place like New Jersey or New York where you have very high income taxes, you throw in the other factors, people were crawling over each other to get down to Florida. Another motivating factor for people moving into Florida was our political environment. I cannot tell you how many people would call me and they were looking up the voter rolls in individual counties so they could determine what county they would live in. It's a powerful motivating force on where you want to live when you feel like you're being oppressed by your local government. So that was probably the most dominant reason that I heard that people wanted to get out, because they were afraid for the children. Back in 2020, home prices here in Florida were relatively low compared to other states like Pennsylvania, New York, Washington, D.C., Michigan, especially California and New York, but homes are relatively inexpensive, so people were getting a big bang for their buck. And another reason they came was the lifestyle. You can be here in January and possibly go to the beach. You do have some cold spells, but it's relatively weak. You do have some hot weather during the summer, but once you've been here a couple of years, I've been here since 1989, and once you've been here a couple of years, you get used to it. Enjoy the sun. If you have a jet ski, I've been on my jet ski out in the middle of the not in the middle of the ocean, but out in the ocean in February, March. So it's a wonderful lifestyle. Now I want to go over some of the reasons why the housing market had slowed down dramatically. And number one is interest rates. Interest rates have a profound effect on the total payment and affordability of a home. If you financed a $500,000 house at 2.5% interest rate, and you go to 7.5% interest rate, you literally your payment is going to increase 77%. It's like almost adding another house to your house payment. So that has put the brakes on the housing market. Another very large contributing factor has to do with home prices. Home prices went up dramatically, more so in Florida than other places because everybody wanted to get here. And when you combine that with the high interest rates, obviously, that was a scenario that people just could not afford, regardless of their desire. So home prices hit a wall. What's surprising, I live in Orlando, and these existing homes around here are only down like 1% year over year. So we're not talking a crash, we're just talking a blip. Granted, there's a lot of homes coming on the market, but unless you live in several areas like down in Cape Coral where there's a high concentration of listings, and abnormally high, that's affecting the numbers throughout the state. But the prices have been relatively stable. It's amazing. Another reason has to do with the work at home reversal policy. So you have some structural problems like interest rates and pricing. Then you have some other problems that can reverse themselves very quickly. So, and a lot of things happened all at the same time. It was a confluence of things that came all together. So for example, back in the early spring, the government reversed its policy on work at home, so that a lot of companies, they followed suit. So you had a lot of people who moved to Florida, purchased a home, and now they have to move back to DC or wherever to maintain their job. And they had to put their house on the market. So early spring, summertime, forced a lot of houses on the market. Simultaneously, when another thing that hit, and that was when Trump instituted the tariffs on these countries, what that did is it forced the builders to go out and buy all the products they can, and they pulled a record number of building permits in spring, March, April, May, all throughout the state. They were trying to build these homes as fast as possible to avoid the tariffs, where they already bought the supplies. So we had a record number of tariff-induced building. All these houses came on at the same time as all these people who had to go back to work in other states put their houses on the market. So it created a little glut of homes on the market. I think as those wash through the system, it's going to even out, and it's going to absolutely be amazing what's going to happen down the road, because you're going to have a lot of those people coming back. I've talked to a lot of people who had to move back, and they're not too happy about it. And once they retire or get a different job, they want to head back to Florida. Of course, another reason home prices went stagnant was high insurance rates. Florida had insurance rates on properties skyrocketed because of a lot of storms, a lot of hurricanes that hit Florida. Florida led the country in fraudulent hail damage claims on roofs. We had like 90% of the entire lawsuits on home insurance policies in the entire nation right here in Florida, because of these hailstorm damage claims, where people would come to your house and ask to look at your roof to see if you have any damage and try to get you a new roof out of it. The government has really cracked down on that, and I think that's reversing itself. Another thing is insurance companies are now coming back to Florida. Now let me give you some reasons why I think this is going to reverse itself, and it's going to turn around dramatically and potentially quickly. Number one, interest rates are coming down. Right now, as of this filming, we're about 6%. And interest rates are dropping significantly quick. The economy is slowing down. Another good thing is we're going to have the Fed Powell, the Federal Reserve, is definitely not going to be reinstated by President Trump. This term ends in May. And I believe it's at the end of January. President Trump will announce who the next Fed will be. And rest assured, it's going to be someone who is pro-low interest rates. But having said that, what the Fed sets as the interest rate is not necessarily directly tied to your mortgage rates. Your mortgage rates are more tied to the 10-year bond. There's another thing that could affect the 10-year bond, and that is tariffs. On November 5th, the Supreme Court is going to hear a case involving the tariffs, Donald Trump's tariffs, where people are trying to say that he does not have the authority to put tariffs on countries. Although George Bush, Ronald Reagan, George Washington, that's how they funded our government back in the day. There was no income tax, it was tariffs. And they want to strip that away from the president, and only Congress can deal with that. I don't think that's going to work. But if they uphold it to where Trump can put these tariffs on these countries, our national debt is going to fall fast. And why is that important? If our debt falls fast, what's going to happen is the 10-year bond is going to drop. Interest rate on the 10-year is correlated to the mortgage rate, and that 10-year bond is going to drop. Similarly, if you have a high-risk buyer who has a very low credit score, they're going to require a higher interest rate because there's a higher liability. Conversely, if they have excellent credit score and low liability, you're going to get a much better rate. Well, the same way with governments. We apparently are the only one who is really applying this tactic to our nation. If this works, our debt to GDP, everything that we produce as a nation, is going to drop dramatically and be much lower in percentage-wise compared to all the other industrialized nations. That is going to force our interest rates down dramatically. And everyone's going to want to buy our debt because less fear of us going under. So this case that's coming before the Supreme Court is a pivotal case. It's going to affect every aspect of life. I think they're going to uphold it. I think President Trump will have the ability to impose tariffs because it's a restrictive measure, especially in matters of national security, in fairness, protection of industries that's in our country. And this is an exciting one. This is a big one. So you have all these things coming together in a very short period of time. So let's look at it. Let's do a recap of this year. You had the tariffs give the builders impetus to go out and build as many homes as they can, which created a glut. You had the people who had to go back to work, sell their home, and move back to where they moved from. Number three, you have political things that are coming up. So we have some big elections that are going to affect a lot of people who are going to want to move to Florida this coming fall. It's all going to happen very quickly. I'm not surprised if there's 1 million people who want to move to Florida. Wouldn't be surprised at all. We just need the right environment. Interest rates is key. So why has things slowed down? If you take a look at interest rates, if you have a home that you bought years ago and you refinance that home and you have a 2.5% mortgage on that house, even though you want to move somewhere, you don't want to buy your new house at 7.5%. You don't want to pay 77% more just in interest on that house. So that is going to unlock all the sellers who are sitting on the sideline in these states. Once they get the green light and interest rates come down, then when that gap narrows, they're going to be able to sell their house and move to Florida. I think it's going to be huge. All these people are talking about, I don't know how they know it's going to drop 60% or 50% or whatever. Again, I didn't get that crystal ball. I don't want that crystal ball. I just want to use what's right in front of me and do the best I can. Appreciate you hanging with me during this video. Hopefully you'll find it beneficial. If you would, subscribe to my channel. If you're looking for a new home in Florida, I have over 700 models that I have videotaped personally all throughout the state, whether it's in Venice, Leslie Chapel, Sarasota, Lakewood Ranch, Orlando, Ocala, Jacksonville, Palm Beach Gardens, Jupiter, all over. So I am a new home specialist. That's what I do day in and day out. But what I'm known for is real estate with a rebate. I rebate half of my commission back to my buyers for the closing costs and prepaids. If you're paying cash, that money goes directly towards your balance at closing. So if I can help you, give me a call, 321-287-8263. Hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you.